Buyurun hocam.
Euzubillahimineşşeytanirracim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Elhamdülillahi Rabbil alemin. Vessalatu vesselamu ala Resulina Muhammedin ve ala alihi ve sahbihi ecmain. Amma ba'd. Welcome back, everybody. This is the second lesson of season one. It sounds a bit like Netflix, but in terms of giving you the accuracy of where we are, last month we made a general introduction to Risale-i Nur and Bediüzzaman Said Nursi. With that foundation on, from this lesson onward, we are gonna pick up particular pieces from Risale-i Nur and we are gonna read the text, break it down, analyze, and try to get the message. Last time, I gave you the outlook of Risale-i Nur collection. It is vast, there are multiple books and a ton of material. The syllabus I created for this uh, season is actually based on the book I compiled like a decade ago. The idea behind the book was to teach a course. So we had to choose certain key topics from Risale-i Nur, sort of simplify them, made them sound more modern, bring it to, today's audience's level of English. That requires simplification, obviously, and make a pocket-sized digestible book with so many chapters. So when I design this series, my I sort of based it on the book. And on the back of the book, on the jacket, there is this little explanation. Why did we need a book like this? It came about based on my interaction with the English-speaking audience in Britain. As I said, I was teaching physics in schools, and then I realized these are the key questions everybody wanted to learn more about. Probably the most popular one is, why are we here? Is there a purpose in our existence? Because secular narrative is telling us that human beings are the byproduct of chain of cosmic events. This American author described human beings as cosmic orphans. He said, look, some random explosions happened, planets cooled down, atmosphere came into existence, then water produced single cell organisms, they crawl out. They gave a version of human existence. And they said, right, we are here, no purpose. We are just the byproduct of accidental chain of cosmic events. And when we die, Joey Tribbiani says, when we die, we become worm food. Yeah, so this is sort of secular, godless explanation of our existence. But as Muslims, we obviously know there is more to it than the general narrative. Nursi comes very effective on this. So, in the words, that's one of his main books. There is a piece called The 11th Word. So, that is the focus of today's lesson. So let me share my screen because the idea is to go through the text itself. So if you're following the digital resource that I'm using. It is this website called irisale.com. Then obviously on the right top, you should choose your language, English. So let's locate where we are first. Okay, so the red ones indicate the books, and we are picking a piece from the words, and we go to the 11th word. Before we dive into it, one thing you realize when you study Risale-i Nur, it has a very systematic structure. So you got the books, there are chapters, there are sections, and most of them, they're just numbered. And at some point, when I was reading and flicking through, I said to myself, okay, so this is the 11th word. If I had to put a title to it, because the modern audience, if you tell them, hey guys, we are going to talk about the 11th word, for general audience, it doesn't really make much sense. 11th word. So in this compiled book, I put a title to the 11th word. I thought, right, by looking at the content of this piece, so the title would be the purpose of the existence of the universe and the human beings, because this is essentially what Nurse explains in this piece. So in the original, it says the 11th word, but if you get a copy of this book, it is chapter one and it is called The Purpose of Existence. Right, let's look at the text. At the top, if you go through all these pieces, there is a visible pattern. And especially if you are following from the book itself, which looks like this. Let me just show you. Probably you have seen the original. You have got the title, which is just a number. You got a Quranic verse, and you have an explanation written in Latin alphabet. So you have this clear pattern in every piece Nursi wrote. Probably you all have heard of Quranic translation. That is meal in Turkish. So if you take the Quran, which is in Arabic, and if you translate the meaning word by word, this is a translation. This is the first category. The second category is what we call wider explanation, which is tafsir. In English, it is exegesis. So Nursi's writings falls into the second category. And there is a specific name to this category. It is called topical commentary of the Quran. So what Nursi does, he takes some Quranic verses and he writes an essay explaining these verses. So they are exactly what has been explained in that piece. For example, in the book, this piece is about, well, few pages. And if you go to the next one, again, you see the same pattern. You got the title, you got the Quranic verse, and you got explanation. So if you are into technicality, Risale-i Nur is categorized as topical commentary of the Quran. So Nursi is basically explaining what he understands from certain Quranic verses. So this piece we're gonna study today picks up some verses from Surah Ash-Shams. So these are the meanings of the verses, but I'm gonna show you the original verse. Then we are gonna dive into the explanation that Nursi gives us. Another of my favorite uh, online resources, Quran.com. So if you are interested in studying, analyzing, breaking down, checking meanings in different languages, listening. So this is quite good. I don't know who's built it, but may Allah reward them. So this is my Quran.com, and this is chapter 91, Surah Ash-Shams. And Nursi takes the first about 9, 10 Quranic verses. So let's go through these verses, then we dive into the explanation. So Surah Ash-Shams goes like this. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah. وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا. By the sun and its brightness. وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا. And by the moon when it follows it. So it is telling us some celestial events. وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا. And by the day when it shows up, when it displays it. وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا. And by the night when it covers. وَالسَّمَاءِ وَمَا بَنَاهَا. By the sky and he who constructed it. وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا ضَحَاهَا. And by the earth and he who spread it. Do you see the pattern? Quran is talking about the universe and everything deliberate. Remember when I made an introduction earlier, human beings are described as cosmic orphans, accidental byproduct of some random celestial events. But the Quran says complete opposite. So it is just describing the sun, the moon, days, the sun rotating around its own axis that gives us days and night, the sun orbiting around the sun, the earth is orbiting around the sun. That's what gives us the seasons. And the Quran goes on, وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا. And by the soul and he who proportioned it. You see, nothing is accidental. So Allah is deliberately stating that he has been doing these deliberately, intentionally. فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. And inspired it with discernment of its wickedness and its righteousness. This is the bit. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. He has succeeded who purifies it. So whoever purifies himself succeeds. وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. And he fails who instills it with corruption. So the Quran is telling us nothing is accidental, nothing is random, everything is part of a big plan. God has been doing it deliberately. And finally, the Quran says, if you purify yourself, if you do the right things, you're saved. If you do the wrong things, if you mess up, you fail. So these are the first 10 verses of Surah Ash-Shams. So let's get back to the explanation. Okay, so from this point on, Nursi is talking. We are listening to him. He says, brother, if you want to understand a little about the talisman of the wisdom of the world and the riddle of man's creation and the mystery of the reality of the prescribed prayers, then consider this short comparison together with my own soul. So he's going to explain why is there universe? Why are we here? What is the purpose and what is expected from us? Throughout Risale-i Nur, another pattern you observe is giving comparisons, making metaphors. Nursi always tells a story first, and from that story, he explains what each element in the story actually represent. It is comparison. In the Quran, it is called masal, and Quran mentions in multiple places. For example, this is a very common one. You hear this all the time. At the end of Suratul Hashr, the Quran says, uh, what does it? لا يستوي الصابر وتلك الأمثال نضربها للناس لعلهم يتفكرون وتلك الأمثال نضربها للناس لعلهم يتفكرون. It says Allah gives examples to human beings so that they understand. Something almost identical appears elsewhere in the Quran. I think it's Surah Al-Ibrahim, if my memory serves me correctly. The verse goes, وَيَضْرِبُ اللَّهُ لِلْإِنسَانِ وَيَضْرِبُ اللَّهُ الْأَمْثَالَ لِلْإِنسَانِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ or يَتَذَكَّرُونَ. Something along those lines. He says Allah gives examples to human beings so that they can understand better. So this is very Quranic. Because at some point, when this big scholar person, he was asked, "Oh, do you read Risale-i Nur?" He says, "Yeah, I looked at it. It's all about stories and plants and flowers and stuff." He was sort of talking it down. But actually, despite his long beard and turban and stuff, I was telling to myself, "Oh, this guy, although he is like acting like a big Islamic scholar, he's missing the key methodology of the Quran. This is very Quranic. Allah says we are giving amsal, we are giving comparisons, examples, so that you can understand better. So the style is very Quranic. And this is very visible, especially in the words. So most of the words at the beginning, there are lots of small stories. So Nursi is making his point understood better by approaching it in a Quranic fashion, giving a comparison, telling you a little story. So let's look at the story. One time there was a king. As wealth, he had numerous treasuries containing diamonds and emeralds and jewels of every kind. Besides these, he had other hidden wondrous treasuries. By way of attainment, he had consummate skill in strange arts and encompassing knowledge of innumerable wondrous sciences and great erudition in endless branches of abstruse learning. So I'm reading the original, but if you read it from this version, it is slightly better understood. So let's look at, okay, if I go to this version, one time there was a king as well. He had numerous treasuries containing diamonds and emeralds and jewels of every kind. Beside these, he had other hidden wondrous treasuries. By way of attainment, he had consummate skills in strange arts and encompassing knowledge of innumerable wondrous sciences and great erudition in endless branches of abstruse learning. Now, like every possessor of beauty, okay, now, so there is this rich king with all those wealth and knowledge of science and skills. What does he do? This is what he did. Like every possessor of beauty and perfection wants to see and display his own beauty and perfection, That glorious king wanted to open up an exhibition and set out displays within it. Why? In order to make manifest and display in the view of the people the majesty of his rule, his glittering wealth, the wonders of his art, and the marvels of his knowledge, and so that he could behold his beauty and perfection in two respects. So there is this king with wealth and knowledge. He wanted to exhibit all his wealth and skills and knowledge. And he wanted to observe his beauty and perfection in two respects. The first one is the first respect so that he himself could behold them with his own discerning eyes. The second, so the others, so that he could look through the view of others. So when I explain this bit, I usually give an example of this art exhibition. Imagine there's an artist. He has some ideas. He paints a painting. That's the art. Okay, he doesn't keep it in his garage. He takes it to the art gallery and he makes an exhibit. And he looks at his artwork and he also looks at others who are looking at his artwork. This is very natural, very understandable. And in most cases, those artists are more interested in how people behave in the exhibition. Are they really acknowledging the art? Or are they just walking past and ignoring and don't understand anything at all? So, as I said, as an artist, you look at the art by yourself and you look at the others and watch how they are looking at your art. So, he set up the exhibit. With this purpose in mind, the king started to construct a vast and majestic palace. He divided into magnificent apartments and dwellings and decorated it with every sort of jewel from his treasuries. And with his own hand, so full of art, adorned it with the finest and most beautiful works. He ordered it with the subtlest of the arts of his wisdom and decked it out with the miraculous works of his knowledge. Then, after completing it, he set up in the palace broad tables containing the most delicious of every kind of food. There is a buffet at the exhibition as well, and every sort of bounty. He specified an appropriate table for each group. He set out such a munificent and artful banquet that it was as though the boundless, priceless bounties he spread out had come into existence through the works of 100 subtle arts. Okay, so he's got the exhibit, he's got the buffet, but there is a plan. So certain tables are designated for certain visitors. Not everything is for everyone. Talking of which, I just recently read Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. It's a dystopian future, and the slogan is everyone is for everyone. So basically, there in that brave new world, there are no boundaries. Everyone is for everyone. But in this exhibit, it's not everything is for everyone. So everyone has their designated space, designated tables. Then he invited his people and subjects from all the regions of his lands to feast and behold the spectacles. Now the exhibit is open. People are invited. They can enjoy the artwork and they can also enjoy the buffet, whichever table they are assigned to. Later, this bit, I go to British Museum, Leeds Art Gallery. I visit places like this. Probably you've been to those places like myself. When you go to an exhibition, you have the artwork, you have a little placard attached to the wall, attached to the artwork, explaining the artwork. And also, you have a curator, you have someone explaining it to you. So the artwork, little written explanation, and a person explaining it. This is very common in modern exhibits and museums. Similarly, when this king set up this exhibit and set up the table, he appointed a supreme commander as a teacher. So he didn't let people wildly roam about, enjoy random food, look at the random displays. No, no, he also put someone to talk about the artwork as well. Someone like a teacher to make known the purpose of the palace and the meanings of its contents. So that person is there to explain the meanings of whatever is in that exhibition. To describe its maker and its content to people, make known the secrets of the palace's embellishments, teach what the arts within it were pointing to, and to explain what the well-set jewels were, and the harmonious embroideries, and to explain to those who entered the palace the way in which they indicated the perfections and arts of the palace's owner, and to inform them of the correct conduct in beholding them, and to explain the official ceremonies as the king who did not appear. So the exhibit is there, but the artist is not there. So the owner of the exhibit did not appear, wish them to be. So the teacher and the instructor had an assistant. He is not on his own. So there is the main curator of the exhibit, and he's got assistants in every little room. Oh, this reminds me so much of British Museum. So you go to like Egyptian exhibits, you got all Egyptian artifacts that there are people explaining to you. Then you go to, African, you go to South American, you got different halls, and in each hall you have someone explaining you what the exhibit is all about. So the teacher and the instructor had an assistant in each area of the palace, while he himself remained in the largest apartment among his students, making the following announcement to all the spectators. He told them, exhibit is open, people are invited in, and this teacher standing at the door, giving them a little explanation right at the start. So what does he say to people coming in to the exhibit? He says, "O people, by making this palace and displays and displaying these things, our Lord, the owner of the exhibit, who is the king of this palace, wants to make himself known to you. You therefore should recognize him and try to get to know him. And with these adornments, he wants to make himself loved by you. Also, he shows his love for you through these bounties that you see. You should love him too by obeying him. You go to someone's house, you have to show respect because, you know, he or she tidied up the house, made the buffet, welcome you, and you just go in shouting and kicking things, walking on white carpet with your dirty boots, going into places you're not supposed to go, opening the trophy cabinets and helping yourself with his stuff. No, you can't do that. Even in modern context, there is code of conduct in every place. So this teacher is telling, guys, you're entering into an exhibition. This is the purpose of this exhibition, and there are do's and don'ts. So the owner of this exhibition wants to show more about himself to you so that you can understand him and you can love him. And he, in return, loves you. And so you should love him. How do you love him? By obeying him. And through these bounties and gifts, which are to be seen, he shows his compassion and kindness for you. So you should show your respect for him by offering thanks. And through these works of his perfection, he wants to display his transcendent beauty to you. So you should show your eagerness to see him. Remember, he is not visible in that exhibit. He is behind the scene. And through, he wants, you should show your eagerness to see him and gain his regard. And through placing a particular stamp and special seal and an inimitable signet on every one of those adorned works of art that you see. He wants to show that everything is particular to him and he is the work of his own hand, and that he is single and unique and independent and remote. You therefore should recognize that he is single and alone and without peer or like or match, and accept that he is such. So the teacher at the entrance of the exhibition, he spoke further fitting words to the spectators like these concerning the king and this station. Now, the doors are open, people come in. Then the people who entered the palace separated into two groups. The first group, since these people had self-knowledge, they were intelligent, and their hearts were in the right place, when they looked at the wonders inside the palace, they said, there are great matters afoot here. They understood that it was not in vain or some trifling plaything. They were curious, and while wondering, they said, I wonder what the talisman to this is and what it contains. Then they suddenly heard the master and instructor giving a speech, and they realized that the keys to all the mysteries were with him. So when they realize this person who welcomes us at the door actually knows everything about this exhibit. So they approach him, and they said, "Peace be upon you, master. By rights, a truthful and exact instructor like you is necessary for magnificent palace such as this. Thank God we have you, because we can ask you, we can learn from you. Please tell us what our Lord has made known to you. Surely you know a lot more than us because you're in charge. You're here to explain things." First of all, the teacher, repeated the speech to them. They listened carefully and accepting it, profited greatly. They acted as the king wished. And because the king was pleased at their becoming conduct and manners, the king invited them to backstage to another special, elevated, ineffable palace. And he bestowed it on them in a way worthy of such a munificent king and fitting for such obedient subjects and suitable for such well-mannered guests. You know, there is usually after party. You got the party, and only selected few are invited to after party. Only selected few are invited to backstage. So this is exactly what the king is doing, selecting the best ones among the visitors. They say, right, these are the good ones. So they invite them to a better uh, place, better palace. And appropriate to such an elevated palace, he made them permanently happy. What about the second group? The second group, the second group, because their minds were corrupted and their hearts extinguished, when they entered the palace, they were defeated by their evil commanding souls and took notice of nothing apart from the delicious foods. They closed their eyes to all the virtues and stopped up their ears to the guidance of the master at the door and the warnings of his students. They stuffed themselves like animals, then sunk into sleep. They quaffed elixirs which had been prepared for certain other matters and were not to have been consumed. Then they became drunk and started shouting so much they greatly upset the other spectating guests. They were ill-mannered in the face of the glorious maker's rules. So the soldiers of the palace's owner arrested them, cast them into a prison appropriate to such unmannerly people. This is the end of the story. Oh, friends, who is listening to this story with me? Of course, you have understood that. So, who is who in this metaphor? Of course, you understood the glorious creator built this palace for the above mentioned aims. The achievement of these aims is dependent on two things. First, the existence of master, and the second, people listening the master's instructions. Okay, friends, the story ends here. If you have understood the meaning of the comparison, I'm sure you all did, come and behold its reality. Okay, what is the palace in this story? The palace is this world. Its roof is the heavens illuminated with smiling stars, and it is floor, the face of the earth, adorned from east to west with multifarious flowers. What about the king? As for the king in the story, he is the most holy one, the pre-eternal and post-eternal monarch, whom all things in the seven heavens and the earth glorify and extol, each with its particular tone. That is God. So, this is telling us the world, the universe is the exhibit, the owner and the maker of the exhibit is God. I'll fast forward because we got only a few minutes. What about the master at the door giving us instructions, telling people how to behave? As the master, it is the prophet, peace be upon him. What about his assistants? Remember, he had assistants in different rooms. His students, the saints and purified scholars, basically, they are just explaining what the teacher is been teaching to them. So these are the saints and the scholars. The ruler servants in the palace indicate the angels. The servants are the angels. And the guests, you have guessed correctly, invited to the banquet to spectate in the comparison are jinn and mankind in this guest house of the world, and the animals who are the servants of the mankind. As for the two groups, you guessed correctly. One of them here consists of people of belief, who are the students of the all-wise Quran, the interpreter of the verses and signs of the book of the universe. The other group consists of the people of unbelief and rebellion, who follows Satan and their evil commanding souls, deaf and dumb, like animals or even lower. They form the group of the misguided who recognize the life of this world only. They don't care about the meaning. They say, oh, there is a banquet, there are foods and drinks, let's enjoy. Quran says, Kel an'amu belhum adal, like animals, even worse. So two groups. When you look at life, people all around you, it is very obvious. Some people, they say, okay, nothing is random. This is the result of intentional creation. Someone created this universe deliberately and put human beings to a test. Whoever passes this test will get a reward. Whoever mess up will get a retribution. Okay, so I'll stop here, but this is the 11th word. I'm sure you all, since you are watching this live or on YouTube, I'm sure you got the technology. If you can go to the 11th word, no one likes the homework, but this is the assignment. Please go ahead and finish this piece. Only few pages left. I focused on the comparison, the story, because this is the very visible technique of Nursi throughout his writings. Well, let's stop here and I leave you to it in your own time. You can start from the beginning and read the whole thing, only a few pages, or just carry on from first group onwards. That is your reading assignment. Right, I'll stop here. Next lesson, we are gonna pick up another piece from Nursi's writings. I can't remember from top of my head. I need to check the syllabus, but we are gonna announce the next lesson probably sometimes in December. Thank you for